Most of you have probably heard of King Henry VIII. For those of you who haven't, he was the King of England during the 14th century, the one with the penchant for murdering his wives when they didn't produce male heirs. What you probably didn't know is that this guy was a little more disgusting than he actually is portrayed in history, as by the end of his life he was neurotic, paranoid, and corrupt. He had an injury from a jousting tournament to one of his legs that never healed properly, and it oozed a stinking pus that could be smelt by anyone within a football field of him, in addition to him just being generally morbidly obese. Now, what you surely don't know about King Henry is before this, when he was a young man, and right when he ascended to the throne, he was a good-looking, suave, absolute Chad. He was into poetry. He was devilishly good-looking, and had a keen ear for the will of the people. He actually made some okay reforms for England, like printing Bibles in English, which made them more accessible. Also made his church a little more powerful, but beside the point. He was originally, though, married to Catherine of Aragon, his first wife, the daughter of the King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. Yeah, those monarchs, the Columbus-funding ones you've heard of. Now, he was happily married to Catherine for 2 decades, and by all accounts, truly loved her. He actually married her because he loved her. She was originally married to his brother, who died unexpectedly, and he fell in love with her after his brother's death. So by all accounts, he genuinely cared for her. But she didn't pop out that male heir, so she was shuffled along in what would become the cavalcade of raw-dogged new wives that also didn't produce male heirs. Fun fact, he did produce a male heir, Henry Fitzroy, with one of Catherine of Aragon's maids, but he was illegitimate and died at 18, so whatever. The point is, don't be afraid to just decapitate that quagmire of a situation you're in and start anew. I love you, Summon-Zon. I'll never leave you. Get the fuck out of here, corpse explosion, you fucking homewrecker! I'll see you in the alley. 20 minutes, swear skirt. Power ranking, episode something, Freezing Arrow Amazon. I'll be running the Mavs version of this class because it's the first class that got my channel started. You can run the Ice Runeword version of this, and if you do, just add points to damage and subtract all of them from safety, because Ice is a fucking glass cannon, and I hate it. That said, looking back on my former beloved Freezing Arrow Mavs fuck machine, it just doesn't stack up like it used to compared to Summon-Zon, my new boo. So, single target. Ice Runeword again takes the cake here for single target, as I know it can push upwards of 20k on Ice. But on Mavs, it stays around 15 to 16k with good faceted gear. Even then, I have to knock it here. This is one of those classes limited to certain maps because cold immunes are everywhere. Now, you can spec into triple Valks because, well, you just have the extra skills. But you're not using passive skillers, so hitting level 30 requires you to bring some and then lower your own damage. But either way, your whole map is Ancestral Trial, where Nathkill, in my opinion the hardest map boss, just rapes your Valkyries and your damage pecks away at him like you're not doing 15k stat sheet damage. It's kind of insane. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10 here, because that high single target damage just gets reduced on bosses that often have high cold resistances. And even your whole map is rough because Nathkill is overtuned. Now, we can't do anything about those resistances because we'll get to the gear in a second. I hate asking for subscribers. I think it's cringe. And at the same time, I want people to watch my videos, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite. But if you want to, the sub button is here in the corner. That corner, there, right there, right there. Now, I have to give you something. So I guess if I hit 1,000 subs, which is very far off, I think I'm only around 360, something like that when I'm recording this. If I hit 1,000, I'll do a face reveal, and you all can figure out what I look like. Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? I'm recording something here, man. Bruh. Privacy. Some people. AoE. Here's one thing this class does fairly well. Freezing Arrow only does 3 to 6k depending on the gear from low to high, but with Pierce, it just shreds through packs on Ancestral Trial. Again, that is a decent map for it, and this is kind of why I hate it. Because on this class, you can't use an Infinity. Really, you can't. You need the Faith Merc to hit your breakpoints, which, FYI, are 95 with a plus 13 Fanaticism bow, and 99 with a low-rolled 12 Fanaticism bow. Now, we can get IAS on arrows, which I couldn't do in Season 2, so that might not be as big of a deal now, but getting an IAS corrupt on one of the Mavs items is really helpful. That said, the class is limited by the lack of an Infinity Merc. It's a cold damager. It's a caster that can't use Infinity. Or you can get the Infinity Merc and you'll just have incredibly slow attack speed, which doesn't feel good. I mean, I'm giving this a 4 out of 10. It's not like a Cold Sork where you can say, all right, I can take the Infinity and go in some other maps and break some immunes and just deal with it. You don't have that option here. It's limited seriously to 1 or 2 maps, and you have to hybrid it out with physical damage to get it anywhere. So safety. Okay, well, here's where that Mavs build comes in. You get a bunch of built-in res. Magic Fine, the class itself freezes almost anything, and that's all you need to know. I mean, it literally freezes enemies in place while walking around, and the Volks do okay physical damage, and they get in front of you. So, alright, 8 out of 10. It's really safe, and thank God for that, because Ubers. So the problem here is that your Volks are not as tanky as Summons on, obviously, because you're not using passive skillers, and you don't have enough extra points to throw in the decoy to make use of them, really. So you're running a class with good cold damage and good pierce, sure, but your uptime on Ubers is terrible. And I mean terrible. I mean, you're basically summoning Volks on end that just insta-die because they don't have enough life. And your damage is really dependent on that Merc either giving you the attack speed breakpoint or contributing to decreasing the cold immunes. You know, I dare say this build really can't do Ubers. I thought it was just bad until I went in on other classes and realized I could solo Ubers in my sleep. The other problem here is the mana. On maps, you get mana back from having mana after kill, and you have to get that either on like some Silk Weaves or get a bunch of corruptions with it, or you're just chugging potions. So if you're spending double the rejuves, keeping your mana up, even if you bring mana potions or taking up potion slots, and trying to keep your Merc up, it's just painful. It really is. The class just doesn't have the ability to recoup its mana and pump out enough damage. So 1 out of 10 on Ubers. It's not great. Gearing ease. Well, you can go the Ice Rune Word, and it's an expensive build, requires some Arcane's Valors with some sockets. Or you can go Mavs, and it's super cheap. No, it's expensive too. Yeah, it is. This was sort of the moment I realized I had some pull as a YouTuber. I hate that word. Ego trip, blah, blah, blah. I know, but I had no subscribers at the time. And the Mavs on video only got to like 1,500 views. And suddenly, the very last piece of gear I needed, a 3-socket Mavs armor, jumped from around a Gull to a Sir real quick. And it was a pain to get. I mean, the price of Mavs stayed relatively high since then too, as plenty of other Boazon players other than me noted how good it was comparatively. You know, top that off with needing bow charms and the ice hardcore those need. You gotta fight with them for it. The declone fire boas need the bow charms too, and it's just not cheap. Plus the facets, which again have increased in price as cold damaging classes have become more popular since Season 2. You know, I'm giving this a 3 out of 10 for having no alternative gear path and being fairly expensive. You need Mavs or Ice to really run this rune word properly, and it sucks without them. So, Playstyle Ease. I'm wondering why I even played this class. It does freeze things, which makes aiming easier, but it struggles because Freezing Arrow, like Meteor, just doesn't hit a large swath. Anytime you're surrounded by enemies, you just slowly decrease clear speed, trying to spin around and hit everything to keep it off you. Unless they're in a line, you're moving kind of slow. The good physical damage from the Volks helps, but even on your home map, Ancestral Trial, a plus 32% life map, which I acknowledge is a little hard, becomes a task to run when enemies get too spread out, which they inevitably do. You know, 4 out of 10 on Playstyle Ease, and that's just from the fact that stuff stays frozen. It's a lot to manage. So overall, for an abysmal 3.67 out of 10. Man, I really did love this class back in Season 2, but I think on retrospect, I just loved the safety of it, and I think that explains my obsession with safety now. You know, I know softcore players like me generally don't care for safety, but I hate dying. And every time I do die, I just think, wow, I'm never going to be mentally prepared for hardcore, and I will never try it. So this class is safe, but it struggles on its home map on single target. It needs strafe damage, or Volks, to deal with cold immunes, which isn't good, because you can't bring the Infinity Merc and the Faith Merc. It can't run Uber solo, because your Merc needs insane gear, and you're spending rejuves on keeping your own mana up. It's expensive either route you go. And I'm probably being harsh on playstyle because it is easy to aim, but I think I just mentally kind of blocked out spread maps or didn't run them. You know, I'm sad again because I did like this class, but finding other alternatives, man, it just doesn't stack up anymore. Hell, even the freeze duration was reduced in Season 3, so I'm probably overranking it on safety. You know, this is a good example of why you should always revisit things, because sometimes you're just so sure either you have the right build or the right opinion, and man, I was wrong. I think even in my Season 5 changes video, I was like, hey, this does not need a single target buff to damage. Yeah, it probably does. I mean, dude, it's just, she got old and fat, and I don't enjoy her. So, Catherine of Aragon, goodbye. I loved you, but the fresh peach gets my attention. See you later, guys.